Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and today we'll be doing two pieces from Ideas and Opinions of Albert Einstein. Let's go ahead and hop into this. The first piece we will be reading and talking about is called Marie Curie in Memoriam, and it is a statement for the Curie Memorial Celebration, Roerich Museum in New York. November the 23rd, 1935, and published in Out of My Later Years from the New York Philosopher Library, 1950. At a time when a towering personality like Madame Curie has come to the end of her life, let us not merely rest content with recalling what she has given to mankind in the fruits of her work. It is the moral qualities of its leading personalities that are perhaps of even greater significance for a generation of for a generation and for the course of history than purely intellectual accomplishments. Even these latter are, to a far greater degree than is commonly credited, dependent on the stature of character. It was my good fortune to be linked with Madame Curie through 20 years of sublime and unclouded friendship. I came to admire her human grandeur to an ever growing degree. Her strength, her purity of will, her austerity toward herself, her objectivity, her incorruptible judgment. All all these were of a kind seldom found joined in a single individual. She felt herself at every moment to be a servant of society, and her profound modesty never left any room for complacency. She was oppressed by an abiding sense for the asperities and inequities of society. This is what gave her that severe outward aspect, too easily so easily misinterpreted by those who were not close to her. A curious severity unrelieved by any artistic strain. Once she had recognized a certain way as the right one, she pursued it without compromise and with extreme tenacity. The greatest scientific deed of her life, proving the existence of radioactive elements and isolating them, owes its accomplishments not merely to bold intuition, but a devotion to tenacity in execution under the most extreme hardships imaginable, such as the history of experimental science has not often witnessed. If but a small part of Madame Curie's strength of character and devotion were alive in Europe's intellectuals, Europe would face a brighter future. So yeah, Einstein giving his thoughts on Madame Curie and talking about having been a friend and how he felt about knowing her personally and how he felt she contributed so much as more than just a scientist, but as a person to the world. Next part we're going to read is called Mahatma Gandhi, and it says on the occasion of Gandhi's 70th birthday in 1939, and it is published in Out of My Later Years, New York's Philosophical Library, 1950. A leader of his people, unsupported by any outward authority, a politician whose success rests not upon craft nor the mastery of technical devices, but simply on the convincing power of his personality, a victorious fighter who has always scorned the use of force, a man of wisdom and humility, armed with resolve and inflexible consistency, who has devoted all his strength to the uplifting of his people and the betterment of their lot. A man who has confronted the brutality of Europe with the dignity of the simple human being, and thus at all times risen superior. Generations to come, it may be, will scarce believe that such as one as this ever in flesh and blood walked on the earth. So yeah, Einstein talking about how amazing it is to stand up to these mighty empires with nonviolence. And in the other pieces we read from Martin Luther King Jr. on my Testament of Hope series, MLK talks about how he's influenced by Gandhi. So both men with a great respect for who Gandhi is. Next piece we're going to read is called Max Planck in Memoriam, and it was read at the Max Planck Memorial Services in 1948 and published in Out of My Later Years, New York Philosophical Library, 1950. A man to whom has been giving a man it has been a man to whom it has been given to bless the world with a great creative idea has no idea for the praise of posterity. His very achievement has already conferred a higher boon upon him. Yet it is good, indeed it is indispensable, that representatives of all who strive for truth and knowledge should be gathered here today from the four corners of the globe. They are here to bear witness that even in these later times of ours, when political passion and brute force hang like swords over the anguished and fearful heads of men, the standard of our idea search for truth is being held aloft undimmed. This ideal, a bond forever uniting scientists of the times and in all places, was embodied with the rare completeness in Max Planck. Even the Greeks had already conceived the atomic nature of matter, and the concept was raised to a high degree of probability by the scientists of the 19th century. But it was Planck's law of radiation that yielded the first exact determination, independent of other assumptions, of the absolute magnitudes of atoms. More than that, he showed convincingly that in addition to the atomistic structure of matter, there is a kind of atomistic structure to energy, governed by the universal constant H, which is introduced by Planck. The discovery became the basis of all 20th century research in physics and has almost entirely conditioned its development ever since. Without this discovery, it would not have been possible to establish a workable theory of molecules and atoms and the energy processes that govern their transformations. Moreover, it has shattered the whole framework of classical mechanics and electrical dynamics and set science a fresh task. that of finding a new conceptual basis for all physics. Despite remarkable partial gains, the problem is still far from a satisfactory solution. In paying homage to this man, the American National Academy of Sciences expresses its hope that free research, for the sake of pure knowledge, may remain unhampered and unimpaired. So, yeah, Einstein given his thoughts on Max Planck and his importance to the scientific discoveries and the importance it will have in the future. So yeah, last piece I'm going to read today. We'll finish off this chapter, and it's called "Message in Honor of Morris Raphael Cohen," and it says for the Morris Raphael Cohen Student Memorial Fund, November the 15th, 1949. Ladies and gentlemen, it was a pleasure to learn that there are people in the turbulent metropolis who are not completely absorbed by the obtrusive impressions of the monuments. Your symposium bears witness to the relations among thinking human beings are threatened neither by the pretentious present nor the dividing line of death. The majority of those who are particularly close to me are no longer among the living. Morris Cohen has been lately included in their number. I knew him well as an extraordinarily helpful, conscientious man of unusually independent character, and I rather frequently had the pleasure of discussing with him the problems of common interest. For when I occasionally tried to tell something about his spiritual personality, I realized painfully that I was not acquainted enough with the working of his mind. To fill this lacuna, at least scantily, I took his book, Logic and Scientific Method, which he had published jointly with Ernest Nagel. I did not do this comfortably, but with a well founded unrest because there was so little time. But when I had started reading, I became so fascinated that the eternal occasion of my reading receded somewhat into the background. When, after several hours, I came to myself again, I asked myself what it was that had so fascinated me. The answer is simple. The results were not presented as ready-made, but scientific curiosity was first aroused by presenting contrasting possibilities of conceiving the matter. Only then the attempt was made to clarify the issue by thorough argument. The intellectual honesty of the author makes us share the inner struggle of his mind. It is this which is the mark of the born teacher. Knowledge exists in two forms: lifeless, stored in books, and alive in the consciousness of men. The second form of existence is, after all, the essential one. The first, indispensable as it may be, occupies only an inferior position. So, Einstein talking about someone who had been a friend to him, Raphael Cohen, and kind of giving some statements on who he was. But that will end that chapter. As you can see, we'll begin a new part 2, on politics, government, and pacifism. But that'll be it for now. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tells you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll see you all in the next video. Until then, later.